Hello everyone. Let's review shlokas 140 and 141 in Lalitha Sahasranamam. Svatantrā sarvatantreśī dakśhiṇāmūrti rūpiṇī sanakādi samārādhyā śivaGYāna pradāyinī chitkaḻā'nanda kalikā premarūpā priyaṅkarī nāmapārāyaṇa prītā nandividyā naṭeśvarī. Let's look at the meanings of the nama. Svatantrā. Svatantrā means absolutely free. That means independent. That means her will is not obstructed by anyone. So she can independently assert her will. And therefore, whatever Devi deems is what will happen in the universe. So she is free-willed, independent, absolutely free. Another way to look at svatantra is you can break it as sva and tantra. Sva in Sanskrit means self. Tantra means technique or a procedure. And if you look at it, all our shastrams, we have mantram, yantram and tantram. Mantram is all the words that bring that kind mindset for us. Tantra is the procedure or a technique. And yantram is the instrument you use. What is the purpose of all of these three? They move you towards the ultimate goal. And there are different types of tantras. If you look at it, Shiva expounded 64 tantras. And all of these tantras will achieve whatever goal you set. It could be getting a certain power. Whatever is our goal, there are tantras for each of those and it will move you towards that goal. So that is the 64 tantras. So initially Shiva only gave 64 tantras. So with using those tantras, you will get a combination of a few powers. That's all you can get. But Devi is so kind and generous towards her devotees. She insisted that Shiva should give another tantra, and therefore Shiva now gave us the śivaGYāna tradition that is called as tantra, and there are so many things within that. So he gave that. When we follow the śivaGYāna tradition, then we are able to get all the four purusharthas. The dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Everything can be obtained. So the difference between the 64 tantras and the svatantra, which is her own tantra, is that you can get everything using the svatantra. And that's why she is also svatantra. She has her own tradition to follow, and it's called as the Shakta tradition. Within that, śivaGYāna tradition is something that's very popular. It's also very revered. Sarvatantreśī, svatantrā. Sarva means all, tantra as we saw is technique or procedures, and then ishi means superior or authority. So she is the authority on all techniques and procedures. Why is she the authority on everything? So we already saw it is svatantra, right? Svatantra. She has her own tradition. So this is hers. To begin with, she owns it. It belongs to her. But on the other hand, Lalitha is also the absolute reality, which means whether it's tantra, mantra, yantra, what is the purpose? It's always explaining about her. She is the essence of all of those. And therefore, it is all talking about her. She owns it and it's also talking about her. So think about it. If somebody asks you a question about what you like, who you are, what you don't like, etc., any answer you give will always be the correct answer because nobody else will know you better than you. So that answer will always be right. So here, whether it is the Vedas or the scriptures, everything is talking about her. And therefore, she is the authority on all the tantras. And it's not just the Shakta tradition. Every other tradition also, she is the authority on that. dakśhiṇāmūrti rūpiṇī. dakśhiṇāmūrti is a form of Shiva. He is considered to be the Adi Guru and he is the essence of wisdom. And so she is in the form of dakśhiṇāmūrti. Rūpiṇī means in the form of. So she is in the form of dakśhiṇāmūrti. Another way to look at it is dakśhiṇāmūrti represents wisdom. So she is the embodiment of wisdom. That is also another way to look at it. So in here we'll interpret it as she is in the form of dakśhiṇāmūrti. Sanakādi samārādhyā. Sanakādi samārādhyā. Sanakādi means Sanaka and others. Samārādhyā means worshipped by. So she is worshipped by Sanaka and others. Who are those others? So Brahma initially created 4 sons for him. They are called as Manasa Putras. And it is Sanaka, Sananda, Sanadana and Sanat Kumara. So these are the 4 people he created. So she is worshipped by Sanaka and others. śivaGYāna pradāyinī. So pradāyinī means one who is able to give, capable of bestowing. What does she bestow? śivaGYānam. There is 2 ways to look at it. śivaGYānam means śivaGYānam is the understanding of that oneness with the absolute reality. In other words, it's nothing but liberation. The moment we recognize that we and that absolute reality is one and the same, that knowledge is called as śivaGYānam. So Shiva embodies that. So she is capable of bestowing that kind of liberation for us, and therefore śivaGYāna pradāyinī. You can also break this in slightly different way. You can say śivaGYāna pradāyinī. So in that way, you can look at it as it was Shiva who gave the world the wisdom or knowledge about her. So she is śivaGYāna pradāyinī. The knowledge about Srividya was given to the world by Shiva. So knowledge given by Shiva is also another way to look at it. chitkaḻā. Chit means consciousness. Kala means the power of divine. So chitkaḻā means she is residing in all of us, in the human being, as the consciousness. It is the power of the divine that's residing within us as consciousness. Ananda kalikā. Anandam means bliss. Kalikā means bud. So she is like a bud of bliss. Premarūpā. Premarūpā means she is in the form of love. priyaṅkarī. So she is the cause of love. What does this mean? We have all already seen, right? The ultimate reality is not something that can be described. Words fail, right? Mano vacha ma gochara. So you cannot explain all this using words. So then, how is this ultimate reality manifesting for the individuals? For us, that ultimate reality, that power is residing in each one of us as our consciousness. Because of Maya, we are all not aware of it. Our awareness is not raised like that. So she's residing in all of us as that consciousness. And that consciousness is like, and as the Kundalini, she's sitting on the end of the spine, and there is that Kundalini, when it raises our consciousness, and therefore will become blissful. So the ability to become blissful is there like a bud. You know, the bud is just before the flower. When the bud blooms, the flower, when the bud opens up, the flower will bloom, and there is all the fragrance and freshness that we'll get. Like that, she is residing in us as our consciousness, as a bud of bliss. Only we have to tap it. And how do you tap it? Premarūpā. So in the form of love, unconditional love is what will help us tap into this Sat Chit Anandam. So the Chit is there in us, the Anandam is a possibility within us, but when we are full of unconditional love, then that's when that bud will bloom into a flower. And so we have to become full of unconditional love. And here the key word is not just love, we are all full of love, but our love is always conditional. We decide who to love and who not to. Whereas the key here is you become unconditional, which means you're not differentiating your own circle, etc. When we become full of unconditional love, the bud will become a flower, and that flower will be the bliss. Our awareness will raise. We become capable of transforming ourselves. So for all of this, unconditional love is important. And she's so kind, so generous. It's not that she's raising there and as a bud she's in there and she's saying unconditional love. She is also that cause of love. So when we worship Devi, she also becomes the cause of love. The bhakti towards her itself is a cause of love. The more we engage with her, we'll be getting the bhakti will fill our heart with love. When our heart is filled with that unconditional love, first we'll fill our heart with love for her. Then slowly it will expand and our circles will expand, and then we become full of unconditional love. At that time, the bud will bloom into a flower, our awareness will rise and will reach that oneness state. So she's the one who is the state that we have to attain, and she's also the one who's the means to attain that particular state. So chitkaḻā'nanda kalikā, premarūpā, priyaṅkarī, you can look at all of that together. So she resides in us as that consciousness. She resides in us as a bud of bliss that can bloom, and she is the unconditional love that makes that bud bloom, and she is the one who's the cause of love. Nāmapārāyaṇa prītā. Nama is name. Pārāyaṇam means chanting again and again. Prītā, she is fond of chanting her name. In one way, we can generally look at it as the Lalitha Sahasranamam, right? It is said that just like that, Lalitha asked all her the Vagdevatas, why don't you sing praises of me? And they composed it, and she was extremely pleased. So a very simple way to look at it is she is extremely pleased when you chant her namas. And therefore, if we do Lalitha Sahasranamam, Devi will be pleased. It is a way to engage with her, and she will be very happy with us. So that is one way to look at it, nāmapārāyaṇa prītā. But it is said that it is also a little bit deeper. Devi is not vain, right? She does not expect that we sit here and sing praises of her. Whether we sing praises of her or not, she is always great, right? By singing praises of her, it is us who are able to take part in that greatness. But Devi is not vain. So, nāmapārāyaṇa prītā, why is she happy when we do the nāmapārayanam? Actually, every single thing, all the languages, all the words, everything is Devi. So as long as you're talking any word, then she is still engaged. And therefore, that means that as you're talking all the words and everything, that means you're processing. So she's happy that you're processing and then trying to reach her. And that's why she is happy, which is actually good for us. Nandividyā. So the śivaGYāna tradition, we've seen that, right? There is a stula form, which is the physical form. There is a sukshma form of Lalitha, which is none other than Panchadasi mantra. And this Panchadasi mantra is extremely revered in śivaGYāna tradition. Panchadasi is none other than Lalitambika herself. We have seen the Vagbhavakuta is her face, etc. In that Panchadasi, there are three variations. There is Hadividyā, Kadividyā, and Sadividyā. So the Hadividyā was given to us by Lopamudra. She is revered as the founder of that. And then Kadividyā is the one Manmada practiced. And Manmada is extremely powerful in Sripuram. Nobody can enter without him. And then the other thing is Sadividyā. And there are very few practitioners of that Sadividyā. And Nandīśvara is one of those practitioners. Durvasa is another. So she is the śivaGYāna that was worshipped by Nandi. And therefore she is Nandividyā. And that is none other than Sadividyā of Panchadasi. Naṭeśvarī. So Nata means dance. And so she is the lord of the dance or the master of dance, and in this the Natanam represents the cosmic dance. We've all seen Nataraja is someone who's doing the cosmic dance. That's nothing other than making the universe go. So she is the one who makes the universe go. Another way you can look at it is Naṭeśvara is Shiva, and therefore she is the wife of Shiva. That is another way to look at it. So with that, we have looked at all the namas. Now let's take a quick look at a story related to dakśhiṇāmūrti rūpiṇī. You can also look at it as sanakādi samārādhyā. So we'll look at a small story. So Brahma, you all know, is responsible for creation. So when Brahma had to do creation, remember, production is a very hard work, right? So he had to find a way to continue this. And therefore, what Brahma did is he created a lot of sons, and their jobs of the sons were to create more people. And that's how the universe will propagate. Remember, the ultimate reality first looked around and said, Bahusyam Prajāye. So the idea was to propagate. So Brahma started creating. So the first thing he created was these 4 sons. They are called as Manasa Putras because they came from Brahma's mind. And those are the 4 sons we saw, Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara. So these are the 4 sons. So the purpose of creating them was to create more people. But these 4 sanakādi, all his sons, they were extremely sattvic. We all know there is 3 gunas, right? When the rajas is more, we are very passionate. When tamas is more, we are very lethargic. When sattvic is more, then we are highly focused towards liberation, wisdom, jnanam. Those are all the things. That's what is called as sattvigam. And people tend to be calm. And therefore they were high in sattvic quality. And Brahma himself, right? He understands all the Vedas and all that. So they came from his mind and they were extremely sattvic. And therefore they were not interested in further propagating. They were all meditating all the time, figuring out how to go attain oneness with that ultimate reality. So a separate story was then Brahma had to go ask Vishnu what to do, and that's how Vishnu created Maya, because we all need that kind of illusion in order for the world to create. And that's how all the other Prajapatis came. Daksha is one of the Prajapatis. He created so many more people. Kashyapa is another Prajapati. So Prajapati is the leader of creating more people. So that is a separate story. But right now, these all these Sanat Kumaras, they were all very, very sattvic, always focused on learning. And therefore, they were extremely good at all the Vedas. So they were experts on Rig, Yajur and Samaveda. And so they read a lot. But even though they all read everything, there were certain times they couldn't understand very well. They needed someone to clarify. But those questions were there. They were asking Brahma, but even Brahma couldn't clarify for them. So there were all these questions. So this was the time when Shiva was married to Sati. So then Maharishi Dadichi actually organized for a conference of all the rishis coming together, talking about what's in the Vedas, how to interpret it, etc. So Maharishi Dadichi organized it. And at that time, Maharishi Dadichi thought maybe if Shiva comes, because who else can give you better clarifications than Shiva himself? Therefore, he thought it will be great if Shiva comes. So Dadichi Maharishi was praying to Shiva and said, if it will be great if you come. And Shiva actually appeared as a very young lad, and he was sitting under a banyan tree. And so the conference was happening there. So Shiva was there. At that time, there were several rishis who were talking, and there was one rishi called Atharva. And Shiva was watching, and it seemed like this Atharva rishi had something to say, but he was holding back. He was not come outright with it, whereas other rishis were all talking about what was in the Vedas. So then Shiva looked at him and said, it looks like you have something that you're holding back. Is there something you want to ask? Is there a question? Is there a clarification? Is there something I can help you with? So then this Atharva Maharishi looked at Shiva and said, actually, it's not a question. I've read all the Vedas, and based on that, I've created my own treatise, my own doctrine. I would like for someone to review it and say whether it is good or not. So immediately Shiva looked at it, and this Atharva Maharishi gave him that. And he looked at it and he saw that this was an amazing treatise. And he reviewed all of it. He couldn't, everything was so useful. And he said, Atharva Maharishi, what you've written here is actually practically useful for human beings. The Rig, Yajur and Sama Vedas are all explaining the ultimate reality, the way to get to it. This also has a way of practical life, worldly living, how to get all your desires, etc. So, and it also has a lot of healing and everything. So he thought this will be very useful. So this should be revered just like all the other three Vedas. So this should become the fourth Veda, and it should be called as Atharva Veda because of your name. So everybody was happy. Obviously, Atharva Maharishi was so happy. Shiva himself said, what you wrote was very good. At that time, the sanakādi, they were also there. Then the four of them looked at this, and they did not recognize him as Shiva. They only saw a young, handsome lad. And they were thinking, who's this person to come and say that this should be a Veda? We are so well learned, and we are the sons of Brahma, who's the custodian of all the Vedas. All of a sudden, some person is coming and saying this should be the fourth Veda. Everybody can't decide, right? If you have food, there is authority for food. Only when they say that is okay, right? And so like that, there is always a particular authority. And they did not consider this young lad as an authority. So they immediately contested and said, who are you? On what authority are you saying that Atharva Veda should be the fourth Veda? How can you say that? And so they said, we'll accept your authority provided you're able to debate with us. And if you win us, then we'll accept your authority. So immediately Dadichi Maharishi organized for a debate. And Saraswati was going to be the judge. So now the Sanat Kumaras are all talking. They're asking questions. So that was going to be the format. So Dadiji Maharishi organized everything, and he made Shiva face north and Sanat Kumaras face the south. And Sanat Kumaras immediately got very upset. We are so well learned and you're making us face the south direction. Generally, south is not considered good. It is considered to be the direction of destruction, or even for a normal thing, right? You'll say everything is going south means it's not going well. Everything is going north means it's going well up. So north is considered auspicious. So the Sanat Kumaras were a bit upset that Dadiji Maharishi made a young lad face the north and make them face the south. And therefore they took objection to it. So immediately Dadiji Maharishi asked Shiva. Shiva said, I have no problem facing the south. So he faced the south and he was seated under that banyan tree. And now the debate started. So the Sanat Kumaras are asking all the questions and Shiva is now answering. Obviously, they didn't know that it was Shiva, right? So, but Shiva is explaining. Shiva is the essence of all the Vedas, and therefore he was explaining it. So this was going on and on and on. And at some point, this stopped being a debate and it became a clarification session. So the Sanat Kumaras, all the questions, nobody was there to clarify. Now this person is clarifying. So without their realization, slowly they became disciples of the person who was teaching it. And therefore everybody moved and they sat on the foot of Shiva. And Shiva started answering all their questions, clarifying all their questions. And the questions continued, right? Shiva gave the answer, then the Sanat Kumaras asked more questions. Again, the answers got more questions, so it was going on and on. At one point, Shiva stopped talking and he retreated into silence. And at that point, he held his hand in what's called as Jnana Mudra or Chin Mudra. The Chin Mudra is the thumb and the index finger will touch the two, and then the other three fingers are separate. So Shiva kept that finger in that way, in that mudra. And then the Sanat Kumaras realized that in that silence, they were getting all the answers. And therefore, they became liberated and they started understanding everything that's in the Vedas and they were able to practice. So what does that mean? Why did Shiva stop answering questions? Why did he go into silence? Because with the Vedas, everything, the Vedas are great. You have to study, you have to understand it. But more important than studying and processing them with our rational mind, it is that we have to realize the truth that is said in the Vedas. And to realize the truth that is said in the Vedas, just normal words and human mind is not enough. Even all these Sanat Kumaras are Mahajanas. They live in Janaloka. So they are very great souls. Even for them, you have to suspend that and you have to experience the truth. That's why the ultimate goal for all the Vedas is getting to Aham Brahmasmi. That means I am that Parabrahmam. Achieving that state is the goal of Vedas. For that, Jnana Margam is one way, but it has to result in the experience. It cannot just always be understood. So, in his silence, he expounded all the truths that are in the Vedas and therefore led all the Sanat Kumaras and all the four brothers to liberation. And since he was facing south, we call him dakśhiṇāmūrti. And he is the first teacher who came to explain. Therefore, he is the Adi Guru. And the Chin Mudra is a very important one. What Shiva is saying is the index finger represents Pashu. Pashu in Sanskrit means animals. And that represents all of us. Why are we also represented as animals? Even though we are human beings, we consider them different. If you see with animals actually behave in a pre-programmed way. They don't have the capability of choosing what to do. That's why you can say a lion behaves like this. In this situation, lion will do this. Elephant will do this. So that is possible. Whereas as human beings, we all have our independence. We have the freedom of choice. We all think we are utilizing the freedom of choice, but unfortunately, what we're always doing is we'll say, if anybody asks you, are you free? Do you have choice? We'll say, yeah, I'll do what I want to do. But the problem is in that word called want. We do what we want to do, and that want itself is Maya. So that's why we are all Pashus. We think we are exercising our choice, but we are not. And what keeps us like that? Why are we so influenced by our want? the three malas, and that's what the rest of the fingers, the middle finger, the ring finger, and the little finger represents the three malas. The first one being Anava Mala, which is a sense of lack. When that ultimate reality limits itself into a form, there is that limitation that is felt. The ultimate reality is capable of everything, but in that form, it is limited. And therefore, we always have a sense of lack. That's why we always feel like we have to do something to prove ourselves. We never say, I'm good as I am, right? I'm good as just enough. That doesn't come to us. Therefore, we always have to do something. And that's why all our wants are also coming, because it's a need to go fill that sense of lack. And that gives rise to all the desires. And then added to that is the Maya Mala, which is the sense of separateness. Because of the Maya, we look at this as me versus the world. That unity is not there. So we are not able to pierce the veil of Maya. Therefore, we consider ourselves to be separate, I versus the world. And that identity creates more feeling of me, the ego. And that clouds our buddhi. And therefore, it keeps us in this cycle. And then the last one is the Karma Mala, where we always take actions influenced by our wants and desires and influenced by our own identity. We take actions and we always expect results. We have a sense of doership and we expect results. But if you see, in reality, the action is the reward and it is not the results. You should not take action just because you need results. You should take the action because it is. So when we become separate from all of that, when the Pashu becomes separate from all of that, then the thumb represents the Pati, which is the leader of all. And that is the ultimate reality. So when we let go of these three malas, then the Pashu will be capable of joining with the Pati. That's what the Chin Mudra represents. Adi Shankaracharya has written an amazing dakśhiṇāmūrti stotram. And if you see, he starts with Mauna Vyakyena. So through silence, he was able to impart wisdom. And he's considered as the Adi Guru. So it says, Gurave Sarvalokanam Bishaje Bhavaroginam Nidaye Sarvavidyanam Dakśhiṇāmūrtaye Namaha. So he is the teacher of all worlds, and he is the Bishaje Bhavaroginam. Bishaj means doctor. He is the doctor. Roginam means who are deceased. What disease will he cure? The Bhavaroginam. It is the worldly disease. That means being so infatuated with this world and being in the material world. He is able to cure that. Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam. He is the treasure house of all the knowledge that is possible. That is Dakśhiṇāmūrti. So that is the Adi Shankaracharya slokam. Dakśhiṇāmūrti is Shiva and Shakti together. Outwardly, it is Shiva that we are seeing as Dakśhiṇāmūrti, and Shakti resides in him as the knowledge, the wisdom, the consciousness, and the clarity that he imparts. With that, Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmad Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Starting with Sadashiva, Dakśhiṇāmūrti, with Sankaracharya in the middle, all the way up to my immediate teacher, I pay my respect to the Guru Parampara, the Guru lineage. That's all for today.